Well, let's see. We have a very brief work session tonight. We were going to have our deputy director stop by and visit us, but it will need to be rescheduled to April. So we're just going to go over the agenda, and then we have a really long bathroom break. So don't worry, Mel, don't come back soon. All right, so tonight's agenda. Interesting. Sorry, I thought, don't we usually have minutes? I don't see minutes. There are, maybe my copy is wrong. So we'll have minutes. Sorry, I know what I'm doing. We'll have minutes. And then item 1 is CR 21-1 and PUD 21-3 on Spring Tree. Rezone and PUD for 42 multifamily units. We did receive some opposition. Most of it was in your late correspondence packet. So we will be hearing that one tonight. And then item 2 is CR 20-21, a rezone on Hawthorne. We did receive a few letters of opposition, so we will be hearing that tonight. And then item 3 is CR 21-4, rezone on Saturn Way. We are recommending approval. We're recommending approval of all of them, but number 3, we are recommending approval. We haven't heard of any opposition, so we can try for the consent agenda for that one. And that's that. Let's see if anyone else has any questions, concerns. Hopefully we'll get some more work session items up and running. It might not be next month, but the following month. I know you guys have all thrown out some good ideas. Just need to get them coordinated with folks. So with that, I took 2 minutes. So that's all I got.
Milt has his hand raised.
Yes, I see that. Commissioner Gillespie.
Go ahead, Commissioner Gillespie.
Hey, Saline, what's the schedule for starting the next comp plan review?
There is none, short answer. Long answer is we're focusing on the zoning code rewrite these next 1.5 to 2 years. So that'll be taking up most of our effort right now.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't mean we won't do, small amendments here and there, but no major overhaul at this time. Okay,
Cool.
So
We'll be back in 20.
yeah, as Milt says, smoke them if you have them, but
Whoa, if you got them.
all right, we'll see you back at 6.
Hello, everybody. We are just coming back.
All right. I think we got everyone.
Meredith,
Yes.
who's Matt Cooper?
Matt Cooper is our
Oh,
technology support.
Ah,
The man behind the curtain that makes it
Got
all
it.
run. Be nice to him, Milt.
Yay, Matt.
He's our hero. He's the one that got us all up and running when COVID hit. So, all right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing through Zoom has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, which we have a few attendees in person tonight. Then whoever signed up online in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, which we have at least one person here tonight on the phone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public has or is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. And then finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Tonight's agenda and proceedings might have a bit of a delay as we all navigate through the technology. Please be courteous and kind while we venture through this hybrid format. Madam Chair, you have the floor.
thank you, Celine. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances, and appeals, and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important that you give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few moments ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then the public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Stead,
Here.
Schaefer,
Here.
Squires,
Here.
Blanchard,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Gillespie,
here.
Finfrock,
Here.
Stanley,
Here.
all present.
Okay, without objection, I will place the minutes from our February 1st, 2021 and February 8th, 2021 meetings on the consent agenda. The other item for consideration of the consent agenda is item number 3. This is CAR 21-4, Penelope Konstantakis at 2007 South Saturn Way. This is a rezone of 7.79 acres. Is the applicant present? And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Great, let the record show that they are. Is there anybody present tonight that would like to testify in opposition of this item tonight? Please virtually raise your hand. Okay, there is a hand up. Ryan, we're gonna go ahead and unmute you. Are you here to testify in opposition of item number 3?
Sorry, Meredith, hold on. I'm just pulling that up.
It's CAR 21-4 at 2007 South Saturn Way, the rezone.
To rezone, yes. Saturn Way, no, I'm sorry. I'm waiting for Allenbaugh and Spring Tree.
Okay. Okay, so seeing no opposition to the item, we will place item 3 on the consent agenda and the chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Schaefer,
I move to approve item number 3 on the consent agenda
in the minutes.
and the minutes from our previous meeting.
Second.
Great, we had a second from Commissioner Squires. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Ed,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore. Oh, Moore. I think you're muted. Gillespie,
Aye.
Benfrock.
Aye.
Stanley,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, before we move on, I just want to check, we do have a phone-in caller. The phone number ends in 6998. I just wanted to check in and see if you could share with me which item you are here for so I can make note of that, because you may have a harder time virtually raising your hand. So somebody called in, and as soon as they unmute, the phone number ends in 6998. Are you there?
Excuse me, what would you like me to do?
Oh, I just was curious which item you were here for.
For the property on Hawthorne.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That'll be the next item up. So we will circle back around to you then. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're on to item number 1. This is CAR 21-1 for Mary Ann Dick. This is a deferred project from March 1st, 2021. Also includes PUD 21-3, the architect's office at 121 South Springs Tree Lane, a rezone of 1.75 acres and a conditional use permit for a planned residential development. We'll start with staff. Mr. Mansfield, please.
Oh, sorry about that, everybody. Thanks, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The next item before you this evening is a request to rezone about 1 3/4 acres from medium density residential with design review overlay to high density residential with design review overlay to accommodate a 42 unit planned residential development located at 121 South Springtree Lane. The applicant is also requesting to exceed the maximum allowed parking by 8 spaces for a total of 61 parking spaces. The development is located on the southeast corner of Franklin Road and Allenbaugh Way and is surrounded by residential and medical office uses. The Boise Town Square Regional Activity Center is less than 1 mile to the west. The rezone is consistent with the comprehensive plan, as the site is designated mixed use on the land use map, and numerous goals and principles support dense development along major arterial roadways, near transit, and existing services. It is also in the best interest of the general welfare, as the addition of multifamily units will undoubtedly relieve competitive pressure on the existing multifamily housing stock, moderating the increase in rental prices caused by a lack of supply. Finally, the rezone preserves compatibility with the surrounding area by providing a predictable transition between Franklin Road and the medium-density residential development to the south. Because of the site's unique location and the fact that a PUD of any greater intensity would require approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the planning team suggests that a development agreement is unnecessary in this situation. The development also complies with the planned unit development standards. Access is provided via Springtree Lane, a private drive located along the eastern border of the site. This allows buildings to be constructed along major street frontages with parking located interior to the site. Pedestrian circulation through the site will be provided through a network of 7-foot wide pathways. Compliance with the citywide design standards will be ensured through a design review permit. A significant number of late correspondence items expressing opposition to the project was received by the planning team. You'll probably hear testimony tonight regarding increased traffic woes and increased demand for parking, and that this proposal includes too many units. In light of these comments, it is worth considering a few elements of the proposal. First, the Ada County Highway District indicated that the traffic generated by this proposal would not be unduly burdensome to the transportation network. The development is located on the northern edge of the neighborhood along an arterial roadway, not within the neighborhood itself. It is also bordered on nearly 4 sides by roadways. Both the applicant and many commenters recognized that on-street parking is relatively non-existent surrounding the site. To remedy the potential negative impacts to the surrounding properties regarding parking, the planning team is recommending an allowance to exceed the maximum parking by 8 spaces for a total of 61 spaces, or about 1.5 spaces per unit. In addition, many of the comments suggested that an office use would be more suitable in this location. However, a 2001 rezone that established the surrounding development south of Franklin Road designated this site as R2D, suggesting that this site was slated for residential development from its inception. Finally, it is important to remember that the city cannot and does not enforce agreements between private parties. The planning team maintains a recommendation of approval for CAR 2101 and PUD 2103. As a reminder, the commission makes the final decision on the PUD and a recommendation to City Council on the rezone. Thank you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ethan. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. We will start with 10 minutes. Just give us a moment to switch over the technology here.
10 minutes.
Okay, it looks like we have John Price ready to go. Please start with your name and address.
Oh, this is Marianne Payne. And John Price is here attending the meeting with me as well.
Perfect. Whoever is going to kick it off, just start with your name and address. And then if you switch speakers, do the name and address again, please.
This is Marianne Payne. My address is 6105 West Franklin Road in Boise. What's happening? Okay, so I am the developer of the project. I've been developing multifamily projects for 25 years. I take great pride in my projects. It's just me. I take the project from finding the land to working with the city, collaborating with the neighbors. Oh, there I am.
There you are.
There we go.
Sorry.
Sorry, our technology isn't great. And I'm involved in the project. My philosophy is to be involved in every step of the development. I work with the architect. I am in every construction meeting. I work with the neighborhood. I work all the way through to tenanting the project. And my goal is I hold my projects long term. I've really enjoyed working with the city of Boise. They are terrific in understanding and directing me to present projects and have successful projects with our collaboration. I found the site and approached the seller. My agent approached the seller to tell him I wanted to build multifamily, which they were aware of when they sold it to me, and they're also part of the association. This was an additional piece of land that they had. And I went to the city and talked to them about what was possible here, which they strongly encouraged me to change and go for R3 zoning. R3 zoning would actually allow us to build, I think it's 69 units and a 4-story building. We felt that was not the direction we wanted to head. We liked, I'm also building a similar product to this just a couple blocks away that's actually under construction right now. It was approved last year at Planning and Zoning. Once again, it's been a successful project with getting collaboration with the neighborhood. We did hold a neighborhood meeting. Unfortunately, I had no response from the neighbors. On the last project, in all my years of development, it's always been of great value to actually, we were able to, on my Maple Grove project, go back and really, make sure everyone was happy. And it's a great way to build a project, to have everyone really happy. That's my intent. I want to build a good project that supports the city's need for housing and is an addition to the neighborhood. It's a market rate project that has, as Ethan said, it's an ideal location with residential, retail. The mall is close by, and the connector is an easy access to the connector. Ada County Highway District really felt that this was not an impact on the neighborhood. The trip count is like 2 trip count in the high. It's 7 times less than medical. So Ada County Highway District is fully supportive of the project and doesn't feel it would be an impact on the neighborhood. We are proposing a 42-unit building. It is 24 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 18 1-bedroom, 1-bath. We have 61 parking spaces, which is, as they said, more than what the city requires. And it's kind of more than they wanted me to have, but I'm happy to have them. So thank you for that. And I'm happy to answer any questions or explain anything that would help you better understand the project.
Great, thank you. Next, we would hear from the Neighborhood Association, which is Bora Neighborhood Association. Do we have anybody present representing the Bora Neighborhood Association? Please virtually raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to questions from the commission for staff or the applicant.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard?
Nope.
Nope.
Right next to you.
Thanks. The other Chris.
Thank you. Mr. Mansfield, a question I have for you is, in the correspondence that we received from many of the folks living in proximity, there was something that came to my attention, and I was hoping that maybe you can touch on it, or maybe the applicant can. Something about a maintenance agreement that has to do with the facility and nearby and that sort of thing. And I was wondering, there was some general concern that was demonstrated in some of the comments, and I was wondering if there's some familiarity with that, what's being done about it, how does exactly that affect this particular project?
Certainly, Madam Chair, Commissioner Danley, I'm happy to touch on that a little bit, and then I'll let Marianne and John weigh in on this as well. I'm showing here, if you can see the screen, some notes from the Enfield Green subdivision number 1. And it does describe that the private road is granted with an undivided interest to lots 1 through 5, block 2, as well as the owners association for access to lots 1 through 7, block 2. This subject site is lot 1 through 5, block 2. So I think the assumption is that there will be a maintenance agreement worked out between the applicant and the Vibra hospital next door. But this, well, I'll leave it at that and let Marianne jump in.
Yes. Here, John's here too. John's just hiding. Oh. He's hiding from you. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Ethan.
Sorry, John, can you please start with your name and address just for the record?
I'm sorry. John Price, the architect's office, 499 West Main, Boise, Idaho. I think Ethan explained it. Basically, Spring Tree Lane is a private lane kind of along the east side of this parcel. And that private lane is shared amongst those lots that he described, lots 1 through 5, which is this project. And then lots, I suppose it'd be 6 and 7 to the east, which access the hospital on the east side. So obviously that private drive, the maintenance of that would need to be shared with the lots that use that for access. So that's not an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chairman?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. What just happened? Sorry. Was that Commissioner Gillespie? Did we just lose him?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay, Commissioner Gillespie, please go ahead.
Thank you. So this question for the applicant or staff. So is it the city's understanding and is it everybody's position that this maintenance agreement would be incorporated into either a private agreement outside of the city's general responsibilities or into the CC&Rs of the subdivision, or like how does the applicant propose what's the next steps on the maintenance agreement for Spring Tree Drive? Thank you.
Yeah, this is John Price again. I'm not sure the technical answer to that question. My assumption is that that should already be addressed in the owners association, that drive was always intended to serve a number of the lots. So somehow that must be, if that is not already addressed in the owners association, it will be something that we can add to the owners association agreement, but that should already be part of the owners association agreement.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Question for staff, and Ethan, I apologize. I was listening and reading at the same time when we were discussing the parking situation in the proposal. You know, at first blush, I'm not opposed to the additional parking, but I sort of feel like the site is maybe like some of the amenities might be suffering from the additional parking. We might be losing some green space at the property. You know, it's quite a few units. We got some 2-bedroom units, so I think it's safe to assume we're going to have some kids at some point living in one of these units. I guess if you could just kind of walk us back through how we got to a situation where we're proposing additional parking than what's required, and if you could speak a little bit to, you know, the amenities that are proposed in the package.
Absolutely. Commissioner Stead, or Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer. Yeah, so the amenities proposed include a dog yard here, and then some garden beds here, as well as, you know, it is in close proximity to the Boise Town Square Regional Activity Center. So they have their 2 amenities and then also kind of additional locational amenities, if you will. So I think that, does that answer your question, or do you want me to talk a little bit more about the parking reduction piece of it as well?
Well, I guess if you could speak a little bit to the parking reduction, or why we feel like it might be needed to add parking more beyond what's just the typical requirement. You know, it seems to me that's sort of contrary to the positives of this being located on transit routes and that sort of thing, you know, and there's plenty of bike parking. They're meeting all those typical requirements. It just, again, seems to me that we maybe don't need to have additional parking.
Yes, Commissioner Stead, or Madam Chair, Commissioner Schaefer. Yeah, you know, you make a good point. The reasoning behind the support of the request to exceed the parking maximum, the applicant made an excellent point when they pointed out that there's really no on-street parking available at all surrounding the development. And so, you know, in order to reduce negative impacts to the surrounding development, which I think, you know, you'll probably hear some testimony tonight discussing how, you know, they neighbors don't want parking, on-street parking, to blow up the surrounding neighborhood. You know, that's one reason I felt that it was appropriate to support a request to exceed the parking maximum. Another reason is that, you know, 1.5 parking spaces per unit is not actually out of the ordinary for the number of vehicles in this area. I mentioned this in my report, and, you know, I believe I'm looking at it right now. It looks like I'm scrolling through my report, but essentially it's like, if I remember correctly, it's between 1.4 vehicles per household and 1.8 vehicles per household is the average for both the West Bench and Central Bench neighborhood associations. I kind of looked through all of those neighborhood activity center, or the activity center almanac there, and that was the average number of parking, or average number of cars per household. So I felt that 1.5 would kind of jives with that, and any lower might actually bring it below the average number of vehicles per household, which would then imply that they're parking elsewhere off-site.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I appreciate that, Ethan. That's yeah, that's good insight. So thank you.
You bet.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
So I had a question about on the sewer district comments. There was a comment that the development exceeds allowed sewer density for the area. Do you know if are there any sort of ramifications of that? And I guess this is a question for staff.
I know.
Commissioner, Madam Chair and Commissioner Moore, I'll actually let the applicant take this one. I did touch base with them regarding that comment, and John did inform me, and Marianne informed me that that was something that they were prepared to work out with the sewer district. And so I kind of let them work that out between the two of them. So I'll let John take it from here, or Marianne.
This is Marianne Payne. I spoke with the sewer district, and it's a financial ramification. Basically, they and of course I asked them how much. I needed to quantify that, but they just charge you additionally. So they kind of have it's like your power bill. If you stay at the normal rate, you pay your, at that tier. And then once you exceed that, there's an additional charge. So I think it's $250 a unit. It's just it's their time to hook it up and and service it. So you pay an additional fee in addition to, and then obviously you pay per unit to hook into it. They just wanted to notify me that there would be an additional charge.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, we'll now move to public testimony. If you are online and would like to testify on this item, please virtually raise your hand so we can get a queue going. We do have one person in the chamber here, so I'm going to invite her up to kick us off first. And then we'll turn to anybody online with their virtually hand raised. Please pull that microphone down to fit you, and you can start with your name and address, please, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Pat Entwistle. My address is 433 South Whisperwood Way in Boise, Idaho, and I am president of the Englefield Green Homeowners Association. Apparently it was my error. When I read the instructions, I thought that I would have more than 3 minutes, and I understand I don't have more than 3 minutes, so I'm going to ash can what I plan to say and try to address some of the concerns I heard. I think after my testimony, if you want, I can answer some questions about the maintenance agreement because it's totally not what everybody thinks it is. The HOA has some responsibility for common area maintenance, and we have a maintenance agreement that was established in 2007 along with the CCNRs for this property. The CCNRs and the maintenance agreement both set this property aside as a medical park. All of the homeowners, the 84 homeowners in Englefield Green, bought our homes with the understanding that that was going to be set aside for that purpose. And we're extremely disappointed that now there's going to be 42 family homes plunked down in the middle of that. We have some major concerns. It's a shockingly inappropriate spot for family housing. It's surrounded by a hospital, a therapy place, an assisted living, a memory care, and our 84 home retirement community. We were surprised to learn that the residential density for this project was justified by comparing it with Grace Assisted Living instead of with our retirement community. And I'm sure you don't need me to explain that that's like comparing apples and oranges. Those people don't drive, they don't create any traffic, they don't have children, and they don't impact us in any way. Traffic is another concern. ACHD did their traffic counts during a time when school was not in session and or we had a pandemic going, so there was very little traffic. I suggest they redo their traffic count during a time when school is in session, and then try to get in the roundabout when Bishop Kelly High School and Bora High School all let out at the same time. And that apartment complex is going to dump out right onto Whisperwood Way, just yards, just feet from where that roundabout is. And I don't know how the traffic is going to be managed there. People are going to be turning left out of there and will be going down Whisperwood Way and impacting our community dramatically. No parking. Our covenants do not allow parking in the street. Our residents aren't allowed to park there except on very short-term basis. Another problem we see is that there's no play area for the kids. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother, and I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. The mothers are going to say, okay, sure, you can ride your bike. You can ride your bike down Whisperwood Way and stay on the sidewalk.
Thank you, ma'am. Unfortunately, that's the end of the 3 minutes.
Oh,
Thank
boy.
you. We appreciate you coming out.
Can I leave these?
I can't
full-
take them, but it is an open record. So I encourage you to send them to the project manager, Ethan Mansfield, who works for the city. And he can add them to the record when it goes to city council.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands raised online. I will do one last call. There's one. Great. Anybody else that would like to speak on this item tonight, please virtually raise your hand. We can next move, let's see. Yeah, we'll go to Ryan and then Kevin. Just give us a moment while we switch over the technology. Ryan, please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Ryan Zumalt. I'm the CEO of Viber Hospital. My address is 6651 West Franklin Street. My concerns for the hospital is the increased traffic in the area, and being an acute hospital, we do have ambulances that need to come and go at different times, whether it's emergent or not. As the Homeowners Association president stated, that during times of Bishop Kelly letting out in the 2 high schools, it is very impacted trying to get out onto Franklin Drive, and that could delay an emergent response to any one of our patients. That's one concern. Next concern is during the construction, the repairs and damages of Springtree Lane, for that being addressed during that time. And then the last one that sits there is, I understand for the housing that needs to be addressed in the Boise community with the developer and placing more housing in here. Just wanted the developer to be made aware also that there are private landowner contracts that restrict the use of that land aside from the city zoning. And that's all I have. The Homeowners Association started to address the maintenance of that road, Springtree Lane, as we go forward. However, that maintenance looks, and we can work with the developer on that if this proceeds forward.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Kevin Ahern. And again, just give us a moment while we switch it over. And if there's anybody else online that would like to testify tonight, please virtually raise that hand. Kevin, go ahead and unmute when you're ready, and please start with your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is actually Barbara Ahern, 593 South Archstone Way in Boise. My concerns, in addition to the traffic, and I can testify that you cannot get out of our neighborhood when the school's let out or are going in. The traffic will increase on Allenbaugh when people are heading to Curtis, and people already far exceed the speed limit, thinking it's very fun to go through the roundabouts at the fastest speed that they can. Someone almost ran over some kids last night that were trying to get down the road. They were far exceeding the speed limit. I know the police have been out, but they sit across the way on Franklin, across Franklin on Allenbaugh. They are never down our way, but that's not going to help anyway. My other concern is the building itself. It in no way reflects the area of the hospital or the daycare or those buildings down there. It's like a sore thumb. looking at that design. If it has to be, I believe you need to come up with a better design or something that fits in. It looks like second-rate housing. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised, so I'll do one last call. Virtually raise your hand if you're interested in speaking on this item tonight. Okay, so seeing none, we'll next move to rebuttal from the applicant. Again, please just start with your name, whichever of you will speak, or if both of you would like to. You'll have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Rebuttal.
I think we've covered everything, and I don't know, do we have?
No, I don't think we can really say anything else than what Marianne originally said, so.
Okay, thank you. Great. Well, we'll now close this portion of the hearing and render a decision. The item is before the commission. Commissioner Gillespie.
Madam Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of CER 21-1 and approve PUD 21-3 for the reasons contained in the staff report.
Second.
Great. We have a second from Commissioner Squires. Is there discussion? You want to kick it off, Commissioner Gillespie?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. So first of all, let me just start at the top of the notes I took as we heard comments. So indeed, the HOA, the CC&Rs, they may or they may not restrict that use. Generally speaking, hearing all sides of that, I'm confident that that issue can get resolved in the legal system between the people who are party to that HOA agreement. And I don't know that it's before us today to rely on that to deny this use. Clearly, the city has a very strong interest in allowing this use at this location. It's on a major road. It's a very large, it's a good sized parcel. It's close to all the things we want density to be close to. And in every other way, the development fits with the dimensional standards of the zone that they would like. So I'm comfortable with that. With respect to the traffic, I mean, we have the evidence in the record from ACHD that this development will at peak put 17 extra cars into the traffic system. It was ACHD's opinion that they would still be able to meet their service levels. I don't know how to account for when they did that and whether or not they considered the traffic from the surrounding high schools. I'd be interested in other people's opinion on that. But it seems to me if we wanted to defer and ask ACHD to do that again, we would frankly run the risk of ACHD saying, no thanks, you already did it once, as is their way. But I'll be interested to hear what people think of that issue. I appreciated Mr. Zumwalt's testimony from the hospital. Again, he was concerned about traffic and about emergency vehicle access during those peak periods. But those peak periods are already occurring because of the high schools and their flow. And I just don't, based on the data from ACHD, they're basically saying it's going to add 17 cars in an hour. So that's 17 cars spread out across, 60 minutes. That's like a car every 5 minutes that gets added to the roundabout, assuming that's the way they all go. I just don't think that this is a big load on the traffic system. The repairs and maintenance for Spring Tree Lane, again, sounds to me like the applicant's happy to work with the HOA and the hospital to resolve those issues. I just can't imagine that those are going to be a serious problem. The final person who testified was concerned about the speed through the roundabout. Again, I think that's more related to the demographics of that high school traffic and less about this particular development. And I don't think adding 17 cars at PM peak is going to have an effect much one way or the other on that issue. As for the way the building looks, you know, the city has a limited amount of work we can do on that. It's already got a design review overlay, so we will be applying at the city level all of the design level overlay massaging and management that we can. And that's kind of how our code deals with that particular issue. So for all those reasons, I strongly support adding density at this location. I think it's a right place to do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Squires, I just saw you unmute.
I don't have a whole lot to add, but I strongly concur with Commissioner Gillespie. I think this is a good transition between uses. Those of us in land use planning understand how all of this works, and I think this is spot on what we would like to see in this location. There was a concern regarding height, but the height in the current zone, R2, is the same at 35 feet. So that's really a non-issue in my opinion. I do believe that there should be some additional spaces. I support that just due to the fact that there is no on-street parking in the area. And also, you know, while there are local amenities nearby, there's not a lot of places to actually walk to. So I think those additional 8 spaces are definitely needed. Again, this will go to design review, so I don't have any concerns regarding the looks at this point. And regarding the question that Commissioner Gillespie brought up about ACHD, just having gone through this process recently, I do believe they're going to look at they looked at the historical data for the area as well. And I'm sure that was taken into consideration. And I just appreciate staff and the developer for working together to come up with a great project for this area. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Danley.
I will be voting to support the motion that was made by Commissioner Gillespie. I agree that the project overall is a pretty solid one. Look is subjective, and that's to be determined. When it comes to traffic, there's something to consider here. If it was a medical building, traffic would be generated. That's a fact. And it would actually, in my opinion, it probably would be worse. And the reason why is because medical complexes would more than likely actually sort of operate in conjunction with the school operation, whereas residential will be leaving the general area as school children are coming into the high school. So you have an opposite flow direction, and the same thing in the afternoon. Furthermore, the fact that it's residential likely is that there's more transit generation than maybe the medical complex, which would further mitigate the traffic issues. So I would definitely think that just generally because of the land use itself is going to be a very different product than with the medical complex as it relates to traffic in this particular instance. My biggest concerns, I think that the applicant and the homeowners association, they definitely need to figure out this maintenance agreement and make sure that that is all tidied up. But that's on them. That's not a city issue per se. My other recommendation, not necessarily part of the staff, or not a part of the recommendation, but to the applicant itself. One of the concerns is that there is not a dedicated area with respect to children for playing and stuff like that. You do have a space that's dedicated specifically for dog park usage. You might want to reconsider that because it's probably going to be a bit of a conflict. One other thing I do want to point out, and I think it's a positive, is the fact that you are supporting single bedroom units. That's something that the city has not seen a lot of, and it's something that's definitely needed. We don't have very much. Most of the applications that have been coming before the city have been 2 bedrooms or more. And the fact is that maybe some of the staff that works in the neighboring uses, specifically with the elderly care, this is exactly the kind of a place that they could live. So I would be supporting the motion for all those reasons.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
I just want to chime in really quick on the note about not having any playground equipment or anything like that. But, you've got Bora Park just around the corner, which everybody seemed to ignore, which is this massive facility with a swimming pool and classes during the summer and all this playground equipment and Bora High School and all these amenities that are just, a couple of blocks away. And most people don't live anywhere near those kind of amenities. So this is a great thing. I don't think the on-premise amenities are a big deal whatsoever. I think that most people in the world would count themselves lucky to be so close to such amenities.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I'm going to be supporting the motion. I agree with most of the comments that have been mentioned previously ahead of me here. I appreciate the layout of the site, the building's front on the streets, and the parking is sort of central internal to the site. So I appreciate the thought process that was given to the property itself. I sort of started the ball rolling on the discussion about amenities, so I'll sound off on that. I'm going to agree with with Chris about the fact that we probably should, I think there should be some thought given to some sort of amenity to the kids that will be living on the facility. Admittedly, I know that Bora Park is around the corner. I think though that in this case, you want to get some sort of amenity, even if it's just a little bit more lawn or open space to give some kids, a little space to run around on the property. Otherwise, I think, the project looks real good and I'm in support of it.
Okay. Seeing no more discussion, we have a motion to recommend approval for item number 1. This is CAR 21-1 and to approve PUD 21-3. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Sen.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Squires.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Linfrock.
Aye.
Danley.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, next item is item number 2. This is CAR 20-21 for Tut Hill Properties LLC at 3153 North Hawthorne Drive. This is a rezone of 0.97 acres. We'll start with staff, and when you're ready, please, Mr. Moser, who is in-house with us, which is very exciting. We haven't had an in-house staff presentation in a while.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The applicant is requesting a rezone of a subject property 0.65 acres in size from R1AS, which is single-family residential 2.1 units per acre in the Sycamore overlay, to R1CS, which is single-family residential 8 units an acre in the Sycamore neighborhood overlay, with a development agreement which limits the density back down to 4.8 units. The site is located at the northwest corner of Taft Street and Hawthorne Drive, which are a local and collector roadway, and it is situated within the Sycamore neighborhood plan and within the Sycamore overlay. Please note that the Sycamore overlay will be included as part of the rezone, proposed rezone, which is the S on the actual zoning designation. The property is currently occupied by 2 single-family residential houses, and the area surrounding it is primarily residential in nature, and there is a church adjacent to the west. There is an activity center located at the intersection of Callister and State Street, about a quarter mile to the west, and State Street itself is about an eighth of a mile to the south. The subject property is located within the suburban land use designation, which is similar to the areas adjacent to the east, to the west, and to the south, and it supports the proposed R1C zone. As such, the rezone is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan and the land use designation. The subject property is also located within the Sycamore neighborhood plan, which was adopted in 1998, and the general intent of the plan was to protect the rural character of the neighborhood. This land use map here that you see was taken from that neighborhood plan. As you can see, the interior lots in the neighborhood, kind of a lower or light colored, were intended to be low density or 2 units an acre. However, the boundary properties along Taft and Catalpa were meant to have higher densities of 4 units an acre. which is why the development agreement was included with this rezone, limiting the density to 4.8, which is the density of the R1B zone. That's why the 4.8 units came from, because it's the R1B zoning. With the DA and the density limit of 4.8 units, the subject property could support a maximum of 3 units, and there are already 2 houses on site. The reason for the rezone is to adjust the property lines between the 2 parcels, and for the north property owner to sell a portion of their lot to the parcel to the south. As you can see on the diagram, this here is the current configuration. So lot 1 is kind of an odd L-shaped parcel. Fronts onto Hawthorne, and then it has this L shape that goes all the way back down to Taft. And then there's lot 2. Both of these are all part of the subject property. And what essentially they're requesting is to do a property line adjustment, move this line up to here, create 2 standard rectangular lots, and essentially lot 1 would sell that portion of their parcel along Hawthorne Drive to the southern parcel. The rezone is required because they cannot achieve this proposed property line adjustment within the current R1A zone, or really even the next zoning, which would be R1B. Therefore, the R1C is requested because of the setbacks. This existing structure, a detached accessory structure, would have to meet all the required setbacks from the new adjusted property line, which it cannot do in the R1A or R1B because it required a 30-foot setback. So they're requesting the R1C, which is 15 feet. And also there's the lot dimensional requirements of both lot size and width. And the only way they can achieve that is through the R1C. So this is an example or a table that shows these. These are the different zones, R1B through C, and their different lot size and width requirements. And then the proposed lots of 1 and 2 below. So as you can see, the 2 proposed lots easily comply with the minimum lot size for the R1B zone. However, lot 1 cannot, width-wise, cannot meet the R1B or R1A standard, and it only complies with the R1C, which is why they're requesting it. The planning team did receive several letters of opposition from the neighborhood. And in general terms, the neighbors' concerns are that the rezone is not compatible with the goals or the intent of the neighborhood plan or the associated overlay. However, I would note that the Sycamore plan anticipates, as already discussed, higher densities along the south and north boundaries of the neighborhood, which is why the DA was included to limit the density to that 4.8. So it's more consistent with the overall plan. In conclusion, the planning team finds that the rezone has all the required findings for the rezone have been met, and therefore the planning team recommends approval. Just to note, the commission makes recommendation on rezones to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. Next, we'll move to hear from the applicant. I see Mr. Tile there. Please start with your name and address, and we'll start with 10 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Chairman and members of the P&Z committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present this proposal tonight. First of all, my name is David R. Tuthill Jr. My address is 2918 North El Rancho Place, Boise, Idaho, 83704. My wife, Marianne, and I are the owners of Tuthill Properties, LLC, and we're the owners of the property on Hawthorne. We bought this property maybe 8 years ago, and really the lot that we're talking about, which borders Taft and Hawthorne, really has been weeds ever since we bought the lot. We think there's a better use for that. And to make a long story short, the neighbor on Taft wishes to acquire that lot to make his lot bigger. And it's not property that is really useful to our Hawthorne property. So that's hence we're requesting this lot line change to take 2 properties. One is an L-shaped, awkward, doesn't really make much sense, and a small lot. And from that, we would get 2 rectangular properties. The rectangular property to the north on Hawthorne is enough property for that home. And the one to the south, which would be on Taft, will be a much larger and better sized property. Thank you for the screen there. By the way, David Mosier and the team have done a great job. So I sure appreciate their assistance on this. I'm not going to say much more. I think David described it. I would say that there was one question in one of the letters regarding this from one of the neighbors regarding the irrigation system. And a letter was sent in by Mike Harrison. He's the manager of the Boise City Canal Company. And he acknowledged that there is an irrigation line that runs on the east side of Lot 1 all the way down to Taft. We don't have water rights in it, but the line does run there. And then that has a junction with an east-west line that runs on kind of a feeder line that runs on the north side of Taft Street. This lot line adjustment really has no impact on the water system, but if any development in the future is proposed, and we're not proposing any at this point beyond the lot line adjustment, but if any is proposed, those would have to take into consideration those irrigation lines, which makes perfect sense. So, and that letter is part of the file that I believe that you have in your packet. And with that, Chairman and Council, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Tuthill. Okay, so next we listen to the Callister Neighborhood Association. I don't see her on though. If we have a representative from the Callister Neighborhood Association, please virtually raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we will now move to questions from the commission for staff or for the applicant. Commissioner Gillespie.
This is a question for Mr. Moser. First of all, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you.
So we're rezoning both the properties. What it's just shown on the left is Lot 1 and Lot 2. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that is correct.
And then, but the lot line adjustment that's shown on the right of the screen now is not before us or before the city.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that is correct.
Okay, so all we're really, the permit tonight simply applies to the zoning that we're going to apply to these two lots as shown on the left in that configuration. And so the development agreement that you're asking for covers both of these lots. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that is correct.
So when they go to do a lot line adjustment, does that trigger a necessary amendment or administrative revision of the DA? Is it like automatic? You get what I'm saying? Like, because we're going to approve, or the council is going to approve a DA for the lots is on the left, but then if they want to do that lot line adjustment as shown on the right, do they have to go back and amend the DA, or is the DA sort of ride with it?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, they would not have to come back and amend the DA. There's really no conceptual plan per se attached to this. The DA just limits the density to 4.8 units an acre, and then it does have another stipulation about if future development were to occur, then access would have to take access of Hawthorne and not Taft. But no, it would not have to be amended.
So it limits the cumulative density of both the lots.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying, I've never seen that, so I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It's a little bit interesting. I'll stop there and let other folks have a crack.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Danley.
So, Mr. Moser, just to make sure I'm clear and anybody else who may otherwise not be, we have a property, two properties, essentially, that are currently zoned R1A. The applicant is requesting to go to R1C. It is our staff belief that because of the land use map, as well as how the Sycamore plan, neighborhood plan reads, that rezone should be allowed. We have a development agreement that would be in place, and because of the new zoning and combined with the acreage of the two properties, the maximum number of units permitted would be 3, but 2 are already there, which means, if I'm doing my math right, essentially what could be constructed is a maximum of 1 unit. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that is correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Finfrock.
question for David. So is the R1C allowed in the Sycamore overlay?
Madam Chair,
Go
members, the Sycamore neighborhood plan does not specify the zone or does not give any restrictions or prohibitions on zones, other than that one land use plan saying 2 units in the center, 4 on the outside. But it does not prohibit the R1C, and the suburban land use designation supports it. But there is a DA attached to that to make it more consistent with the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I realize we have 2 Davids on the call now, so I appreciate Mr. Dial about being prepared to chime in for that one if need be. Any further questions?
I have.
Sure. Let's go to Commissioner Moore, and then we'll loop back to Commissioner Gillespie.
Sure. So a lot of comments referenced a 1989 rezone, and I know not to put you on the spot about that one, but do you know anything about that? Was that, I don't see any information where that included a DA that would limit the density, which makes me think that it would have been just those 8 units per acre, which would be a higher density, and therefore why it might have been denied at that time. Is that kind of aligning with the records that might be available about something like that?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'm not familiar with the 1989 rezone. That would actually even predate the Sycamore neighborhood plan itself. And I couldn't find any type of record of that.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. I promised Commissioner Gillespie, and then we'll move back to Commissioner Blanchard.
Thank you, Meredith. This question for David and the applicant. So David is, and you referenced this as to why they might want R3, or I'm not R3, R1C. And I was a little bit confused by that. So is R1C what will, if they want to enable them at some point to split lot 2 again, or like, what was that part about what R1C will allow them to do dimensionally that R1B would not?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the R1C zone would allow them to actually facilitate the property line adjustment as seen here. Otherwise, the existing R1A zone, the lot widths and the size are too big to actually allow for a property line adjustment and allow the two property owners to basically exchange properties, because then you'd be creating parcels that would not be consistent with the zone and its requirements. And the same would apply for the R1B. And particularly the R1B requires 75-foot wide lots. And if they proceed forward with this record of survey as proposed, they would be creating a 61-foot wide lot, which is too small. And we couldn't approve any record of survey because it's not compliant with the base zone.
Right. So one more question, Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So is lot 1, is it currently configured in that L shape? Is that compatible, and the house on it, is that compatible currently with the R1A zone? I mean, the setbacks to the north look pretty tight.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the existing lot and house are grandfathered in. And
no, I understand that, but
in that current configuration. So you're correct, the house placement would not, I don't believe, meets the current 10-foot side yard setbacks of the R1A zone.
So
30-foot rear setback for those outbuildings in the back. And I don't know.
Right. So lot 1 is right now a non-conforming zone. Right, and therefore, you know, it was probably put there way before the R1A zone was invented, but so it's already non-conforming.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Whew.
Commissioner Blanchard, I think you're up next.
Wow, yeah, this is getting really weedy really quick, and it's probably a lot of much ado about nothing. But so at the end of the day, what we're going to do is rezone this whole thing here, and lot 2, the newly proposed lot 2, they're going to be able to come in and just get an ADU or something by right on that property without doing any kind of a lot split after this, correct? I mean, which would be, we could do in any R1, right?
That is correct. Madam Chair, members of the commission, any single family house in any of the R1 zones within Boise could apply for an ADU as long as and be approved, provided it meets the basic standards for that. They are accessory to the allowed use of a single family house.
All right. Thank you, David.
Okay, any last questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Danley.
Sorry. Just to restate what you just said, because I think that's important to note. What you're saying is that as currently configured, lot 1 could certainly go ahead because of by right, apply for an ADU and be granted. And if a rezone of these 2 properties occurs, lot 2 could then later on down the line by right apply for an ADU and be granted, both of which because of the R1 zoning.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions from the commission, we'll next move on to public testimony. Anybody that's interested in testifying on this item, please virtually raise your hand so we can get a queue going. And before we switch to that, I'm going to just take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll come back at about 11 or 12 minutes after, and see you back here for the public testimony in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. Thank you. We're going to actually, I see some hands raised, which is awesome. Please keep putting them up if you would like to testify on this item tonight. We're going to get started actually with the call-in phone number. So it's the number ending in 6998. Once you unmute, you'll be ready to go. Please start with your name and address. I see Richard did unmute. Do we have that caller still on the line? Phone number ending in 6998.
So I'm not 6998 if your screen said to ask me to unmute.
Okay, let's start with you then. You're here. Thank you, Richard. Please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name's Richard Fritzley. I live at 3807 North Hawthorne Drive, so I'm just up the street from the proposed property. On its surface, I'm not opposed to a strict lot line adjustment, but I am adamantly opposed to a rezone, and don't really know if I buy the reasons for doing the rezone. I'd have a few questions I'd like the commission to consider. Is if both property owners are doing this just to transfer the property, why isn't the owner of property 2 here tonight to testify about that and saying he's in agreement and wants that property? Is there a purchase agreement between the 2 property owners that's going to move forward and stay there? And third, does a development agreement really protect the neighborhood against long-term further subdivision of that property and the higher densities going in, when a different commission might feel differently about allowing higher density? I bought this property I live in 20 years ago specifically for the Sycamore neighborhood overlay. Further development on the edges at a higher density is just not in conformance with what we want. The one thing I would agree with that Mr. Tuthill said is that lot has been a nothing but a weed mess for 8 years, and we'd certainly welcome in the neighborhood somebody who would take care of the property. So if a lot 2 owner would get that and take care of it, that would be nice. But I, like many other of my neighbors that live on the street and live in the neighborhood, have serious concerns about the rezone and the long-term ramifications of that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, we'll try again with the phone number. I did see somebody unmute. So if that's your number ending in 6998, you're unmuted now. Please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Oh, I have nothing to say. I'm sorry. It was my mistake to unmute. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll next move then to Greg Stock. Just give us a moment here to get the technology switched over. Okay, Greg, go ahead and unmute, please, and start with your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi there, Greg Stock here. I'm at 3400 on Sycamore Drive, and it sounds very reasonable what's proposed, but I too have some concerns about the long-term implications, both for attempted rezones by others in the neighborhood or at the fringes of the neighborhood, for the future of high density development that might occur because of the rezone. Because as the first commenter stated, it seems like if there were a simple transfer that maybe a rezone would not be required because there isn't that narrow, the strip isn't overtly narrow if it were acquired by the other homeowner. So my main concern is just for the long-term implication of what the impact would be on others who might want to try and rezone and do higher density. Because we too have purchased a house in this area because of the low density and are concerned about the erosion of that restriction over time. And so I'd like if the commission could comment about that, because it really is a concern. And I too have noticed that lot. It's just been an empty lot. And so if it were transferred to the new potential owner and it was stayed as one unit and was maintained, then that wouldn't be a problem. But the larger implications are a concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stock. We'll next hear from Hillary Takahashi. Please unmute when you're ready and start with your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Hillary Takahashi. I live at 3821 North Hawthorne. Before I get started quickly, I just wanted to talk about what Mr. Mosier said for the area being rezoned as 0.6 something acres. Yet all the signage and everything else as 0.97 acres. If you go to the Ada County assessor, those two lots combined would be 28,000 square feet just over. So I'm not sure where the number discrepancy is happening, and that's something that we should ask and find out about. But on to the next thing. I have a peripheral lot within the Sycamore neighborhood plan. And here the plan is absolutely clear. It is a 4 unit per acre peripheral lot and 2 units per acre interior lot. The neighborhood's comfortable with that. Many people here moved here for that. And we're all willing to gather and come together for that. What we are not comfortable with is an R1C designation of 8 units per acre with a development agreement to keep it at 4. Much of the R1C justification used were lots that aren't even in the Sycamore plan, let alone in the Callister neighborhood. You'd have to find justification within the plan, both written and geographic, and you'd be hard pressed to do so. As somebody else already mentioned, this area was denied a rezone in 1989. There is a file that you can get for that. I did pull it. I'm not going to go into the details here. The shared water system is another pillar within the Sycamore plan. The Boise City Canal has already been in contact, sharing their concerns regarding setbacks, rights of way, as well as pipe maintenance. At the time of the Sycamore plan, ACHD had approved sidewalks for Taft. What happened? With 2 houses breaking ground in May behind the church and the potential for future houses, what has been the involvement with ACHD? Has there been any traffic study or planned road pedestrian improvements? It is an unsafe road for pedestrians and cars along Taft, especially between Hawthorne and Sycamore. About a week before the neighborhood became aware of the proposed rezone, we started the process of organizing in order to affirm the Sycamore plan. This is a priority of as the proposed resite of planning and zoning will become available for public comments. There are just over 40 households now organized, and the group is growing. In speaking with them and for myself, we believe there are other options for the parties involved to achieve their goals and stay true to the Sycamore plan. The shed being in violation, there are other ways to ask for a variance or approval to maintain the shed there. We just feel like a rezone to R1C with a developmental agreement is not the correct option for us at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I wonder, Mr. Moser, can you address that lot discrepancy in the size?
Yes, very quickly. Madam Chair, members of the commission, the 0.97 acres being rezoned actually includes the right-of-way adjacent to the site. So the site's actually 0.65, but the larger numbers because we have to include the rezone that gets or the right-of-way that does get rezoned as well.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, next we're going to hear from Douglas Drinka. Please start with your name and address, and also I just see a couple other hands raised. So if there's anybody else that would like to testify tonight, please be sure to raise those hands. Go ahead, Douglas, you're up with your 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Douglas Drinka, 3808 Hawthorne Drive, down at the end of the street. I just wanted to say quickly that I echo Hillary's concern that R1C is not the right zoning for this plot of land. I believe that most of the neighbors here who are speaking and who have sent feedback would be fine with an R1B zoning for this. That's what's called for in both the Sycamore overlay and the neighborhood plan for that area. I noted that Mr. Moser mentioned that there's nothing in the plan that speaks specifically to zoning, and that's true. R1A, R1B isn't called out. However, what is called out is that all development should occur on large lots of 10,000 square feet or more. That's very explicit in the neighborhood plan and in the overlay, and that aligns most closely with R1B as opposed to R1C. Again, I echo Hillary in saying that with the DA attached, I recognize that this ends up feeling like an R1B, but it doesn't look like an R1B. And so going forward into the future, where a lot of developers are interested in these large plots of land, this just doesn't set a good precedent. As Mr. Gillespie said, I've never seen that. That's concerning to me in terms of the board not seeing this sort of framework used before. To me, that doesn't set the right precedent.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Clay Elstad. Please start with your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Sure. Hey, good evening, Madam Chair and all commissioners. My name is Clay Elstad, 3500 Sycamore Drive, 83703. I live in the Sycamore Overlay District, the kind of large lots, the R1As. And I just wanted to say that I'm opposed to this lot rezone. This zoning change has been tried in the past. We've heard about the 1989 zone cited by folks, and that was the genesis of the Sycamore overlay, the push to get this whole area incorporated as a large lot. That 1989, my understanding was why it was done that way. So again, this was tried in 89, and then again it was tried in February of 2018, April of 2020, and now here we are in March of 2021. It's the same players and the same kind of goals here. I do want to say, the zoning won't change the fact that there's a weedy lot down there. It will be regardless of your decision. Let's see, and so it's been denied. I'm just kind of running through my notes here. The other point I wanted to make, that I didn't see any notice of a neighborhood meeting, and there's no records in the Callister Neighborhood Association of any meeting for this lot rezone to be discussed with the neighbors. So that's maybe why no one was on the phone with the Callister Neighborhood Association. I know there are meeting minutes from the April rezone, but that was larger than 6 months ago. I don't know how many months ago. That was 8 months ago. So I don't think there was a neighborhood meeting to discuss this. And I do want to say, my reading of the Sycamore neighborhood plan, cited by Mr. Mosier, comes to a different conclusion. He cites that proposed higher density on the edges of the Sycamore neighborhood plan that wasn't codified in the zoning ordinance that the city adopted with the R1A. But what was shown in the neighborhood plan was that we want the large lots, and the rezoning was not appropriate for this area. That's kind of all I have right now, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Piper Field. Again, 3 minutes, and please start with your name and address.
My name is Piper Field, and my husband and I live at 3112 North Sycamore Drive, right near Taft. We're in the perimeter of the Sycamore neighborhood plan. We submitted our comments to opposing this application, but I just wanted to add a couple of things. When I spoke to Mr. Moser last week, and he was very helpful in getting back to me, and I really appreciate that. I told him our main concern is that if the council grants this application to rezone the 2 lots to R1C, even though there is a development agreement attached that limits the construction, the door is open for the next applicant who wants to develop a property in this area to apply for R1C zoning change. And since my conversation with Mr. Moser last week, the property next door on the corner of Taft and Sycamore has gone on the market. I'm really concerned that if you approve this application, that you will be seeing the next application for rezoning to R1C so the lot can be subdivided. So I really urge you to consider the precedent you set. I am in agreement with the prior speakers regarding the Sycamore neighborhood plan, the Callister neighborhood plan, the Northwest neighborhood. In terms of the Boise blueprint, I don't think that this way of trying to follow the Sycamore plan from 1998, and we moved here before that, we've been here 27 years, that to a density of 4 units per acre on the perimeter, I don't believe this solution fits. I'm also confused because I thought that when I spoke with Mr. Moser last week, he said that the same result could be achieved by rezoning the properties to R1B, and then the applicant taking 2 additional steps, which to me seems a much more reasonable solution and more fitting with the intention and the vision of this plan, which when the city annexed the neighborhood in 1974, and the commitment was to keep it R1A, large lots, urban agriculture. And I think that is really the vision and intention of this area. So I'd like to hear the clarification on that, why it can't be R1B and what other variances or applications would need to be, or permits would need to go to be approved in order for this solution to be made to this corner lot without rezoning to R1C. So I don't need to go on anymore. I just want to say that when we moved here 27 years ago, it was because of the overlay. And we didn't intend to increase density. We weren't part of that plan in 1998. We have fruit trees, nut trees, 6 varieties of grapes. We have no intention of subdividing or trying to build any more additional units on our property. And we hope that you really think about this carefully before you decide about whether to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else that would like to speak on this item tonight? Please virtually raise your hand. Okay, one more up. It looks like that would be the last one, though. So Tracy Kreitz, please start with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, yes, my name is Tracy Kreitz, and we live at 3516 North Hawthorne Drive. And I believe that we are in agreement with our other neighbors that have spoken tonight that this isn't fitting with the overlay plan, and also the reason that we live in this neighborhood and the reason that we have actively protected the development. And I definitely think that this sets a precedence, and if there's a different way to—
Oh, Tracy, it looks like you just muted. If you could unmute and pick up again.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so I was just saying that we're in agreement with our neighbors, that we don't feel like this is fitting with the overlay plan and the reasons that we live and protect this neighborhood against development. And definitely just wanted to echo the concern and the precedents that this would set. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Ernest. Please go ahead and unmute and start with your name and address, and then right into your 3 minutes. Ernest Popolo, looks like, oh,
I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah, please start with your name and address, and then 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's 3816 North Hawthorne Drive. No, I agree with most of my neighbors. I've been here since I bought this lot in 1977. And built a home on it myself in 1985. And before I bought this lot, I noticed down the street, just north of lot 2 and 1, there are 2 duplexes. And Mr. Abe Laser snuck those in. He got the, you guys, not you personally, but the city to agree to put those in, and they weren't supposed to be in there. And so we always worried about that happening some other place. And I talked to James Molinari, who's going to buy this from Tuthill. And Mr. Tuthill, Dave's sitting right there. And I told James I would not oppose this, but now after hearing my neighbors, why can't it be R1B? Why can't they 2 get together, move that lot line and leave it so James can't sell his lot and 1 and put 4 units in there? And one of the concerns I have is that the city, the commissioners, allowed 4 units and their shotgun houses on Silver Street. You allowed 4 duplexes down there. And when you drive down Silver Street in the morning, it's a short street right there, by this property that runs from Taft to State Street. You can't drive down that if another car is coming up the other way, because all these people, they only have 1 parking space, and so they're all on the street in the morning. It's full of cars. So you cannot go down that street without somehow getting into try to get into a driveway. I hate to see this happening. And I don't see why Tuthill can't get with James and sell that as a R1B. So we're guaranteed that James won't build, or he won't sell his house along with this lot eventually, because James said he couldn't afford to build on that lot right now. So if James is not lying to me or he doesn't sell his property, that's fine. But people change. Things change. Mr. Tuthill, are you lying? why do you need it to change? Why can't you leave it R1B just or have it R1B? Answer that question. I don't see why the zoning has to be changed. I told James I wouldn't oppose it, but after hearing all my neighbors, I do now oppose it. And, I've been living here 47 years in this property and it's big. All my neighbors have nice big properties and I want it to remain that way. And we vote for you people. So we would like all our neighbors. I've talked to all of them. They do not want that change. They want it R1B. So thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you. We're actually just volunteers. We weren't voted here, but thank you for the feedback, just to clarify our position. That was the end of our hand risen. So at this point, we will close the public portion of the hearing and the item is now before the commission. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wait, we have to go to rebuttal first. Sorry, we're going to go to the applicant. You'll have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Please, again, just start with your name, Mr. Tuthill.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Dave Tuthill, and I took some notes during the public comments, and I'll address those issues. First of all, why is the other person not on the line? James Molinaro. Well, we do have a sales agreement. I agreed to work with the city to see if we could get this change, and so I'm the front person on this. I do have an agreement with Mr. Molinaro. Secondly, there's a desire to have no additional development. I understand that. The Sycamore plan, the 1998 plan, does have a different density on the northern edge and on the southern edge, as Mr. Mosier explained and showed the picture. So that was the plan since 1998. And what we're doing is in accordance with that plan. Third, there's no desire for an R1C. There's been a lot of discussion to limit to R1B, and the reason that we're going to R1C is because of the distances. It would require some waivers that the staff felt that this would be a better way to go. So this technique that we're using is consistent with the recommendations of the Boise City planning staff. Next, there was a question about there are no other, I heard a lady say that it didn't seem like there are any other R1Cs in the area, and across the street to the south on the south side, all along Taft Street, those are all R1Cs. So it's not hugely different to have some R1Cs. There was mention made of new planning development underway. They want to redo the plan, but the plan in existence right now is the one that we're going by, and this is the neighborhood plan, Sycamore neighborhood plan. So this is consistent with that. The meeting notices went out in December for a January 6th meeting. I held an online meeting. Nobody showed up, but I sent out all the notices that the city provided me labels for. So that meeting was held online on the evening of January 6th, and which is, I guess, the previous applicant tonight didn't have any people show at her meeting either. And finally, because this overlay has existed since 1998, I think this technique of making this lot split works. And if the development agreement has no clout, and that's seems to be the worry of the citizens in the area, then why have a development agreement? This was proposed by the city planning staff, seems to work, limits this, it provides for the variances that are needed, and if it has no value, why would there be such a thing? So that's my rebuttal, Madam Chairman and members of the P&Z Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuthill. So now we are closing the public portion of the hearing and the item is before the commission.
I've made my motion for tonight, so I'll leave it to my erstwhile hardworking colleagues.
I'll wait.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Blanchard.
I move that we approve the motion recommended by staff as written.
Second.
Great. We have a second from Commissioner Gillespie. Would you like to start the discussion, Commissioner Blanchard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I just kind of want to elevate this up to the macro level here, just so that we can all be clear. I think from the great questioning from Commissioner Gillespie and Commissioner Danley is that at the end of the day, like here's what we're being asked to decide is who is going to get to build on that lot, right? I mean, that's all this is. And that is frankly completely outside of the purview of P&Z. It's like either party A who owns this lot is going to build on it, or party B who owns this lot is going to build on it. And so like change is going to happen. And so one way or the other, this is going to get built. I don't see any concerns with high density, what they call high density in that region. It's just not, it's not a place that's really going to be for that or appropriate for that. So, I mean, I think, you know, what you end up out there with is a single family home of some size. And I think that's why the R1C is requested. And frankly, you know, lot splits at any other time these are just administrative things where you come into the counter and you ask for a one-time lot split. So really that we're going this far where this actually had to come to P&Z is actually kind of amazing, I think. And again, these, I've heard 3 dates tonight that I wrote down. One was 1974 when I was 6 years old. Another was 1989, which was 32 years ago. And another was 1998, which was 22 years ago. And like, you know, this is like saying that we should leave this the way it was in 1974 is saying, you know, we should all be happy. You know, why don't we just still have Gerald Ford as president or something? I mean, look, we're in an entirely different reality than we were from any of those dates, right? And I think to have this level of frustration with the potential that a single family home will build on that site is frankly pretty incredible. The last thing I want to comment on, and unfortunately I had to comment on this, and the last thing is that it is completely officious to me and I think never appropriate for somebody to come in and call one of their neighbors a liar. Or to insinuate that somebody here on the commission is doing anything other than public good. And I think there's no place for that. So for all these reasons and what is declared in the staff report, I'm voting to support this.
Thank you, Commissioner Blanchard. Commissioner Gillespie.
Thank you, Commissioner Stead. So I'd like to thank Chris for the motion, and just a couple of things. I think that really the interesting question, right, is why not R1B? And I'll bet you when this goes up to council, people are going to have a better answer than they have tonight for that question, because it's a really good question. And I think the short answer is because right now that lot 1 and maybe even the house on lot 2 don't meet the dimensional setback standards or the zones. And so I believe, and I haven't looked, I haven't had time during the hearing, that city code prevents us from doing a lot line adjustment if the resulting lots are not conforming with the zone, right? In other words, being non-conforming sort of freezes us unless we can figure out a zone so that they begin conforming, and then we can split and make this lot line adjustment as proposed. I think that's what's happening. I hope city staff to the council is a little bit more clear on exactly what isn't conforming and why and when that happened. So there's some history there. I agree with Chris that the big picture is we're going to do all this and it's going to enable at some point down the road, it's possible that one more house gets added to this set of properties. Again, what's before us now is not that decision. It's just this zone and this DA. But we're kind of being asked to sort of look ahead and forecast or think about, you know, does the DA protect us against the worst abuses of R1C? And in this case, it limits us to one more dwelling unit going on this combination of properties. I'm okay with that happening. I agree with the city staff and the applicant on their interpretation of the Sycamore plan and the Sycamore overlay. So for all those reasons, I would support the motion to recommend approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillespie. Commissioner Moore.
I just wanted to I support the motion as well. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of comments that kind of came up in the public testimony, mainly in setting a precedent for R1C zoning along this side. But I think I would disagree with that. I would think that with the development agreement, we're setting a precedent that 4 units per acre, no matter what, whether it's R1B or R1C, is what we're looking for along there. So despite it's being R1C versus R1B, I think the precedent is being set that the density is what matters in this case. I know there were some other comments about the size of the lots based on information in our packets. It looks like even though it is a rezone for R1C, those lots are still over 10,000 square feet. And for all of those reasons, I think I'm perfectly comfortable supporting this motion with the DA and the R1C zone.
Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
With your permission, I'd like to make one last comment on this issue of precedent. And it's my second time talking on this, so I'd like your permission.
Yes, please go ahead, Commissioner Gillespie.
So just as a procedural matter, we're constrained to just look at this application and judge it according to the code and the relevant comp plan. That's true for any application before us. So we are not constrained to look back at other decisions on other properties. In fact, if we did, that would be very problematic. So we are constrained to make, and so I'm talking to the neighborhood who are worried about precedent. It does not. We are constrained, in fact, to look at just what is in this public record. And that is true for every single application before the city. So I just wanted to clarify this issue of precedent. So it's an important way that the Planning and Zoning Commission, indeed the City Council, in these permitting procedures is not the same as a court of law and their use of precedent.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was actually on my radar too. And I agree with that. I mean, and I think there was a comment made about, a different commission might make a different decision. And that's absolutely right. We do the best that we can with the evidence we have and the code that we're given to make the best decision based on that evidence. Any last comments on this?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I realized my camera's off. Sorry. And I'm now calling from Mars, apparently. Just real quick, too, I wanted just to speak to a couple of the comments about traffic, roads. There was also some comments about the irrigation deliveries on the properties. And I just wanted to ensure to all the folks that are attending that, those things are looked at when there's a development application before the commission or before design review. So the time, it's not the time right now necessarily to consider traffic studies and accesses and whatnot. That's all addressed when there's an actual development application before the city. And then in regards to the irrigation delivery, those are legally required to remain in place. So whatever application comes before the city, those will have to be maintained. So the deliveries are always maintained, and that's a legal requirement. So that was the only other thing on my list I wanted to clarify for the record.
Cool. Okay. Seeing no more testimony, we have a recommendation for approval for CAR 20-21 at 3153 North Hawthorne Drive. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Judd,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore, Moore. Gillespie.
Aye.
Benfrock.
Aye.
Stanley.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned. Have a great night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.